Hello, and welcome back to the Colorado Color Company YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making a Spiral Re-Wag or Re-Wig, whatever you want to call it. It's a trippy pattern. This is some new Coogi. Coogi is a constantly changing color pattern, but we use the same layout, so each time you use it the colors are different, but the general effect of the pattern is the same. Pretty fun, cool pattern. So here I'm just attaching another handle to this blank of Coogi, and I'm just going to stretch this down and add a little spiral into it. A lot like the bow tie, we're just going to spin this whole thing up, and the base of this pattern is going to start off of a reversed spiral. So here I'm just using gravity and a little bit of air to make sure this seal and this taper is good. Drop it down to the roller, make sure it's nice and straight. So there you can see I have my two spirals kind of set, so when I go to spin the middle up, I don't have big dead spots on the end where the handles are straight. And here I'm just adding in a heat base. So I like to add the whole heat base in before I start manipulating or spinning the glass up. So I'm just going to come in here and soak this whole thing in a nice big flame. Here in the dark view you can see the heat start to build in. And I'm angling the glass, trying to get some splash up, and mainly working the sides because the middle is gonna get the splash from heating the both sides. If you just shoot it in the middle is gonna get really hot, so I like to work each end, and as I'm doing that, the middle of the tube will also get the residual heat and become hot. There you can see I got enough heat into it for it to start moving, so now I'm gonna add the spiral. This pattern it's pretty important that you don't want to overspin this. I'm going for about 1 to 2 rotations through this whole piece of tube. I am going to cut this in half, so I think I did about 2 rotations in this length of tubing. So now I'm going to cut this in half. I didn't have my infinity tool. I have jumped over to the 40 mil Herbert Arnold Zenith, which was really nice to work on. I love this torch, super buttery heat bases, nice and even. So what I'm doing here is I'm just stretching down the middle a little bit to an hourglass shape, and that's where I'm going to split it. And since I didn't have the infinity tool, here's another little trick to you know, add a crease in glass and then wiggle snap it. So I'm just using the side of my marver. I have a nice fresh marver on this torch. It's got a really sharp edge, so I just went in and I laid a crease in there with the edge of the marver, and now I'm just wiggling it back and forth, adding stress to that point. And then I'm going to leave it a little off center and whack, snap it in half. So now I have 2 equal pieces. I'm just going to set one aside for later, and we're just going to focus on this one here that has about 1 rotation in there. Definitely don't want to overspin this once again. If you get the lines too tight, you're going to lose the trippiness of the pattern when you re-wig it, or re-wag it, however you like to call it. Again, just attaching a handle here. This is 12/7. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to, you know, solidify the seal, get it nice and hot, stretch it down a little bit, keep that spiral in mind. So now that I got that handle attached, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the same thing like on the larger piece. I'm going to build in a nice even heat base before I start to manipulate this piece of glass. So now that I got a nice heat base built in there, well, there you can see it in the dark view. Everything's starting to glow real nice and even between the handles. You can kind of see this pattern has a couple Q lines in it that you can see when you're hot. Those lines that stand out will help you keep your pattern where you want it. And here I'm just doing a little expansion, trying to get it to that football shape that I've talked about before. And once again, you know, little maneuvers is the way to go. You can always come back from a little maneuver. If I were to try to take this, get it hot, and blow it into a round ball all in one shot, there might be some inconsistencies where the softer colors are. So I'm really just taking my time with this, going in and out of the torch, you know, going to that football shape, and then a little rounder and a little rounder. And there, just kind of compressing it just a little bit, rounding it out even more. But basically here I'm just trying to get a nice round spiral with about one rotation within the pattern I'm gonna use for the spiral wag. So here I'm getting nice and close. This will probably be the last expansion. Nice and hot, letting it set up a little bit before I puff into it. If you go and blow on that when it's white hot like that, the softer colors are gonna wanna blow out, the stiffer colors are gonna wanna stick. So, you know, I like to let it set up just for a second before I puff into it. Again, on the roller, just checking to make sure everything's on center. Now I'm gonna rip off one of these 12/7 handles here. And again, I'm getting everything hot that I want to remove. And just leaving that perfect spiral pattern. And then I leave a little waste on the spiral because I know I'm going to come back in right here and I'm going to pick it down. And once I've removed the bulk of what I want to remove, here you can see I'm getting the bulk of what I want to remove gone. So I'm just gonna pick and roll that off back to right where I want it. And once I have where I want it, I'm just gonna pick tiny little picks right out of the termination. This is gonna pull just a little bit of the clear over the top of the color, making there less color exposed there to burn out down the road. And you can see there how that termination is small and pointed, and it wants to heat up more than everything else. So I'm trying to focus my heat everywhere else except for that termination. If you come in and just laser beam that termination, it's gonna burn up. But once you get everything hot, like you can see it's starting here to be, you know, nice even heat. Once you get it there, the termination should be nice and workable. And here I'm just using a little gravity and a couple puffs to start getting that perfect ball shape I want to reverse. And you know, I'm getting this really hot here. You can see it's flopping around, and this is actually condensing the glass, and when I puff into it, it's evening the glass out. So as you condense and you puff and you condense and you puff, it really evens out your wall weight. And then back to the roller here just to check to make sure I'm on center. You can see there I have about one rotation in this spiral ball. Now I'm going to reverse the axis here. So I got the Smith torch out and I'm just pinpointing the center spot. And then boom, I think I actually put a little piece of bubble trash. Don't tell the guys in the shop. Luckily that was a snowflake one and it got sucked up into the ventilation. Bubble trash does happen. If you blow a big glittery bubble trash, you definitely want to kind of step back and let it all settle and get the vacuum and clean it up properly. Luckily that one was like a snowflake and it got sucked up into the ventilation, which is also a sign of good ventilation. If your bubble trash gets sucked up into it. And then there I just punny to one side and I'm ripping off the other 12/7 handle, and I'm just gonna do the same thing to this side where I'm gonna get what I want to remove nice and hot before I go in there and start removing it with the 6mm tear off rod. So there I'm just removing everything, and it's important here that you're spinning the ball as you're tearing this off. If you stall out, you're gonna have a straight pull and the pattern's gonna have a non-continuous spiral that's gonna kind of stop and just stall out right there. So if you're spiraling something up, you want to be rolling it as you're removing the bulk. But when it comes to that little tiny pick off, you can stop and just do the little tiny picks to pull the clear over the color. And here I'm using a Sophietta in the hole I popped to just round this side out. And what this is going to do is just leave me with a nice round ball on a punny that I can then reverse the axis on. So here you can see it. I got the nice round ball with the hole in it, about one rotation in the spiral. Here I'm just taking an octagonal reamer and I'm going to open this up to 12/7 to accept my handle. And I'm kind of pushing from the inside out there. You can see I'm going in and pushing up from the inside. If you just jam it in there, you're gonna get a weird jumbled up hole. You kind of want to bring those walls out from the inside. And here I have a lot of heat in my ball, so you can see I'm just barely flashing it. Kiss the corner of the 12/7 and roll it in. Little puff of air, pop it on the metal of my torch. I don't like to pop punnies off on the graphite. You'll end up chipping your graphite, so I always try to use the solid spot on the Herbie right above the torch face. GTTs are a little more sensitive up there. If you go banging on the tip of your GTT a lot, you might give it some dents, but the Herbies are pretty solid right there, so that's a good spot to knock off punnies, in my opinion. Obviously, you know, find a good solid place to bump that punny off. And then here I'm just gonna further round this out. Since I reversed the axis, it's, you know, a little misshapen. So again, I'm getting it just ripping hot, floppy hot, kind of juggling it, using gravity to catch it. And then here I'm using gravity to just whoop, make it round, you know, put it on the roller, check it out, a couple puffs, it's looking good. Probably do that one more time just to ensure that the wall weight of this ball is even. These expansion and contractions are really important to get a nice even wall weight. So now it's looking pretty good, pretty on center. And I'm gonna come in and I'm just gonna punny to the front of this. You could open this up and add another handle to stretch this down. Basically, we're gonna stretch this down to, you know, 12/7 to 15-ish to add some loose wig-wags in. But what the punny does is it doesn't give you a termination on the front side when you're done. So it's a little more versatile that you don't have an open handle that you're then gonna have to have a termination on that side. So I'm just adding the heat, slowly kind of stretching down here. And it's really important to condense this before you stretch it. If you just get it hot and pull, it's gonna be really thin. So what I'm actually doing is I'm getting this really hot and I'm letting it condense down, and then I'm stretching it out. And this is gonna keep your glass nice and thick. If I were just to get it hot and stretch on it, you're just gonna pull the glass thin. So you actually wanna condense the glass and then pull it. So there you can see I have the spiral now stretched out. That might be up around 15 millimeters there. This is gonna be perfect. These next wig wags are just gonna be real loose, suggestive, trippy. These are traditional wags too here. I'm not doing bender backs where you force the glass into bumps. I'm doing one turn forward and one turn back. Traditional wig wags are easier to get a nice big looser pattern. I don't want this really sharp kicks like you might want in a wig wag. I want this to be really flowy and trippy. So these are just big suggestive motions that I'm adding into this spiral here. And then yeah, just every once in a while checking on the roller, adding the kick, putting it in the L marver, making sure everything looks good, checking straightness. And you can see I'm doing the basic repeated motions here. Marver, puff, roller every once in a while just to check to make sure. There it was a little off center, so I just came in and I got the end of it hot and where the clear is attached, and I'm just trying to straighten that out. And you can see there we got a nice trippy spiral wag pattern coming to life. So the next move here is just to get this whole thing hot and kind of reshape it into a cylinder. And again, I'm building a nice even heat base into this whole thing before I go in to blow it out. I'm gonna blow this out in three steps. It's gonna be two sides, and then I'm gonna blow those two sides into one ball. So here I'm doing, the left-hand side. And just like you would gathering a wig wag, you don't want to take it too far. Just a little expansion there. Now I'm going to come and I'm going to do the right side, or my right side, viewer's left. And I'm going to do the same thing to that side. I'm just going to get it hot and I'm going to expand it just a little bit. And you can see there, it expanded it to about the size of that other side. Now I'm going to come between those two expansions, and I'm going to do a third one, and this is going to start creating the cylindrical shape or the football shape that I'm going for in the section. Little roll in the L marver to kind of set the cylinder. So there it's, the finished shape is coming to life a little bit. Hey, there you can see it. Punny got off a little center, no biggie. I'm about to rip that thing off. And it's important right here, it's gonna melt in, but I'm just gonna pick off what's left right back to the clear layer. And in the end product, it's gonna look like that punny was never there. I guess it was more of a hot seal. It started as a punny, but as you blow that out, you get a little residual heat over there and it melts together. So now I'm gonna round out this front side. And as you're building in the heat, you're obviously gonna get a little heat up on the top. So I'm gonna throw it in the L marver, and the L marver is gonna keep that cylindrical shape, allowing me to just blow out the front. The marver also sucks heat out of the top side of that cylindrical shape. So here I'm sucking the heat out of the flat spot, and the tip that I'm trying to round out is staying hot. So then I can go round out just the tip without expanding the sidewalls. Okay, and there, I think we got a finished pattern. It's still hot, but you can see the Spiral Re-Wig is pretty trippy little pattern. and I'm just gonna check it one more time to make sure it's nice and straight for the next video. Looking good. So here's the finished pattern. Really cool, rich blues, greens, yellows, reds. So that is the Spiral Re-Wig or Re-Wag. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We will be dropping more content on how to use our products soon. Thanks and have a good day.